Okay, we're going to look at finding some expressions using delta x. We're going to use this later on when we get to definition of the derivative. So we're given two functions, f of x equals 2x squared minus x, and g of x equals 3 minus x. We're going to find each of the following. So f of x plus delta x. This little triangle means delta. It's like the change in x. So what that means, everywhere you have an x in the equation, you're getting rid of it and replacing it with the x plus delta x. Like if I said find f of 2, like what we just did on the previous examples, you would get rid of the x and replace each of them with the 2. So to do this, we're going to have 2. So I'm going to get rid of this x and in parentheses replace it with an x plus delta x squared minus, again, I'm going to get rid of that x and replace it with an x plus delta x. Okay, and then from here, it's just simplifying. And it's not going to look pretty, it's going to be long, but that's all we have to do from here is simplify this. So first, we want to FOIL this out. Okay? And if you remember, the shortcut for FOILing is you square the first term, so that'll be x squared. Then you multiply these two together, so that'll just be x delta x. You cannot combine them, like how you can't combine an x times a y. An x and a delta x are different. So you multiply these together to get just x delta x, okay? But then you double it, so that'll be 2x delta x. And then the last step is to square that. So that'll just be delta x, and you can just put the squared at the end of the x. So step 1 is square it, and then we're going to distribute that 2. In the second part, all we have to do is distribute that negative. So here, I have one more step, distribute the 2, so that'll be 2x squared plus 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared minus x minus delta x. And this entire long expression is going to be our answer. Okay, so once you distribute and square things, you're not going to be able to combine like terms. So whatever you're left with once you simplify the operations is what you get. Okay. Now number 6, this is just going to be, it's going to carry, number 5 is going to carry over to number 6. So this time we have f of x plus delta x, which is what we just found here, minus f of x, which is just the regular equation. So I'm going to take my 2x squared plus 4x delta x plus 2 delta x squared minus x minus delta x. So all of this is what we just found, the x plus delta x. Now we're going to subtract f of x, which is just the 2x squared minus x. And make sure when you're subtracting something, if it's more than one term, you're going to have to distribute that negative. So this will be 2x squared plus 4x delta x. So that first part isn't changing. Then I'm going to have minus 2x squared. This is going to switch to a plus x. So it's probably going to save you a step if you can, when you're subtracting, just go ahead and distribute the negative, which will just change the sign of that second term. Okay. Then here is where you're going to be able to simplify. You should be able to cancel out everything that doesn't have an x. So the 2x squared is going to cancel with the negative 2x squared. The negative x is going to cancel with a plus x, and everything I'm left with has a delta x. So you should never be left with anything that doesn't have a delta x when you're doing this part of the expression. And this entire thing will be your answer. Now let's go ahead and look at doing the same thing but with g of x. Okay, so these are the same two equations. We're just going to go through that process again with g of x. And it might not always ask you for this first part and the second part. It might just skip this step and ask for this. Well, it's going to be the same process. You're always going to figure out this part first, even if they don't break it down into 2 steps. So now I'm using this equation. When I have the x, I'm just going to replace it with that. So since I'm subtracting, be sure to distribute the negative. So it'll be 3 minus x plus delta x, and you can go ahead and distribute and plug it in the same step if you want. So this will be 3 minus x minus delta x. And that's all you can do. You'll never be able to combine like terms in the plugging in x plus delta x step. Okay. Then in the second part, we're going to take what we got, so 3 minus x minus delta x, and we're going to subtract this 3 minus x. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute, and that's going to make it 3 plus x. And this is where everything without a delta x should cancel. So the 3 and minus 3 is going to cancel, the negative x and plus x is going to cancel, and it's just going to leave us with a negative delta x.